You know, I don't normally talk about this a whole lot, but I do have a website where I occasionally do post things like written stuff and other things that interest me. One thing I wrote about today that I'm going to also turn into a video right now is my concerns over Mass Effect Andromeda. Now you might be thinking, well, Mass Effect Andromeda looks pretty cool. Looks like another entry in the Mass Effect series, and I'm on board for that, and dude, I am too. I like the Mass Effect series. I like BioWare's games in general. I love the Dragon Age series, of course the Knights of the Old Republic franchise of days past, and pretty much everything else they've ever done. However, there is one thing that I've seen trending with BioWare over the last couple iterations of multiple franchises that they have, and unfortunately, I'm seeing that trend continue with the little gameplay footage we have seen in Mass Effect Andromeda. Over the past couple iterations of the franchises that BioWare has done, we've really seen them dumb down a lot of aspects in their games, and they've simplified everything from dialogue wheels to general combat even, and honestly, I'm getting a little bit scared as to where that's going in the future here. I'm talking about the leap from Dragon Age Origins over into Dragon Age 2, which basically dealt away with any personal choice aside from a few arbitrary ones throughout the story, and really took away the sense that you were playing your own character. Instead, they took the Mass Effect route and instead made you play as Hawk, a character who was, akin to Shepard in that you get to choose whether he's kind of a sarcastic dick, a really nice guy, or just the most evil person you could possibly imagine. Now the thing is, for Mass Effect and Mass Effect 2, that kinda worked because they were very succinct stories, and especially in Mass Effect 2, when you go into the ending, there's so many different possible scenarios that can play out that it kind of makes all of that worth it, because you still feel like your story is different than everyone else's. Unfortunately, when we got to Mass Effect 3 and when we got to Dragon Age Inquisition, it ended up being a good story, albeit, but you didn't have any of those choices. You lacked a lot of that. And that was a huge problem for me because I really like the RPG genre and I really like having my own choices. It took until Pillars of Eternity came out to get that real Baldur's Gate-like I can choose to be the type of character I want to be. Once again, because we just haven't had that in games in the last 5 to 10 years. And what it does is it shows that BioWare is very willing to dumb down their products in order to appeal to a more casual audience, and we're seeing that when they took ideas from Mass Effect that made it less of an RPG and more of a shooter, and actually put those into the Dragon Age series, and now I fear the opposite is going to happen. They're going to take something that kind of dumbed down Dragon Age Inquisition, and then put it into Mass Effect Andromeda. And I think that is right in front of our faces when we look at the gameplay for Mass Effect Andromeda, which doesn't look bad by any means. I don't think it's going to be absolutely terrible, but it looks very similar to Dragon Age Inquisition, which in turn looked very similar to, well, MMOs. And I don't know about you, but when I play a single-player RPG, the last thing I want to be doing is feeling like I'm playing an MMO, because when you're playing an MMO, it's usually not because of the gameplay, it's because you get to interact with other people and you more or less get to waste time, and it's a great way to have infinite content. Very rarely is someone playing an MMO because they really enjoy the combat system. And when you put that into a single player game, well, you run into a few problems with people getting, bored as hell. And that's what I felt like in Dragon Age Inquisition. Every fight scene felt pretty well the same. You were running through a giant open world which looked very pretty and wonderful, but there wasn't a whole lot to do in it. You'd find a couple little hubs here and there, then maybe you'd find a camp of enemies or some enemies roaming around, maybe a chest or something, but that was more or less it. And that's very disappointing to me because I want a more succinct RPG experience. And when we look at this gameplay that has been released for Mass Effect Andromeda, it looks like BioWare is taking their model from Inquisition and putting it into the next entry in this Mass Effect series. I am not okay with that because I want to have a very succinct story. I don't want to be running around as whoever your main character is in these giant open worlds and then just seeing a couple packs of enemies, hitting a couple hotkeys to do my special abilities, and then having everything rinse and repeat over and over again. Now, I should iterate here that I don't think that's going to make it a bad video game. I just think it's going to make it less than what a lot of people want it to be. People want their Mass Effect 2 again, or they want, say, a more RPG choice-heavy version of it that isn't reliant on just being a streamlined MMO story. I don't want to play through the Old Republic's storyline. I want to play through a Dragon Age or a Mass Effect storyline, and that includes having very succinct combat areas and not just having everywhere be a combat zone at any single time, because then you can't make good level design. You know, everything takes place fighting in a small field, instead of actually taking place in a designed level where you get to utilize cover and flanking positions and your abilities to the best that they can be, and it makes your abilities more interesting because they can, say, interact with the environment rather than specifically with the enemies. So that's my big concern right now about Mass Effect Andromeda. If it becomes more like an MMO or more like Dragon Age Inquisition, I feel like it's going to really hurt the franchise, and there's going to be a bit of backlash for a company once again, quote, dumbing down the experience. And while they have every right to choose what direction they want to bring the series in, it is something to be aware of. What do you think about this? I want to hear from you. Leave a comment down below and tell me whether or not you're excited for the game, what you think is going to happen with it. If I'm totally wrong, that's totally fine. Give the video a like if you liked it. If you didn't, give it a dislike. That's coolsies. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.